Welcome to the I Can Do That podcast. I'm Jem Fadling, spiritual formation coach, author, and founding partner of Unhurried Living. With 30 years experience in spiritual formation, I help people grow by combining grounded optimism with practical spirituality. This effective dynamic will guide you onto the path of discernment so that you can transform your hopes into habits. Each episode, I'll share one practical idea with one simple takeaway. Together, we'll grow at the pace of transformation, and you'll move into your day saying to yourself, I can do that. I'm so glad you've joined me here. I really encourage you to go back and listen to the trailer and the first 3 episodes. They lay the foundation for what we're doing, and I think you'll find them very helpful as we begin our journey together. Now let's dig in. Today I'm introducing the process of notice, discern, and respond, or NDR. Now NDR is a supremely helpful progression for change, especially in terms of our thoughts. Once you become familiar with this simple idea, it can be an underlying way of life as you engage your own thoughts and feelings, as well as your own transformational journey. The beauty of NDR is that it helps you make the move away from reacting and into the more helpful mode of responding. Psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl says it this way: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now, I'm suggesting that NDR is one process that you can engage in that space. Now, my husband Alan introduced the idea of NDR in his book, An Unhurried Leader, and he called it unhurrying your thoughts. I've taken the seed of this idea and expanded it into a progression for moving from an unhelpful thought to a more helpful one. I've been using NDR for the last year in my Managing Inner Narratives coaching group, and it's proven quite helpful to the women who engaged it. I'm going to go ahead and describe each aspect of NDR and then give you an example so you can see how it works in real life with your very own thoughts. So let's look briefly at each part of this process. So the N is notice. You just begin by pausing to notice. As you discover an unhelpful thought, at first you just want to simply see it. You can even write it down and look at it. There's no need to judge the thought or to chastise yourself for thinking it. Just simply notice and hold it in God's presence. And built into this kind of noticing is the beginning of acceptance, because now you're not hiding from the truth. Noticing leads to discernment and is the gentle entry point to this process. Discerning is actually about becoming more curious. You can just take another look at the unhelpful thought that you noticed and ask yourself a few questions. What's going on here? What's the tone of this thought? Is this thought true? Is thinking this thought still working for me? And in God's presence, you can turn these questions into prayers and let yourself explore. Discernment is the key to becoming wiser and more confident, and it's the precursor to more healthy responses. And so, of course, the R is for respond, and once you've spent some time discerning your thought, what's one movement forward that might help? Rather than reacting, you can move through notice and discern and then into response. Responding then becomes an overflow rather than a manufactured headlock that you place on yourself. And process matters in this case, especially if you want to make lasting change. In the work of changing your thoughts, consider a reframe or an inner shift. Depending on how deeply this thought is rooted within, it might take a while, but lovingly and simply take the next step and keep going until you have a new, healthy pattern. You can view, notice, discern, and respond actually as 3 stones you step on while crossing a brook. You simply want to move from one side to the other. And thinking organically about this can keep it from becoming rigid. It's more like a natural flow. You just pause on each stone and breathe and move to the next. Let's take a look at a very simple example of how you might use NDR in the middle of your day. Let's say I catch myself one morning with a clenched jaw and some tight shoulders. I might easily determine that I'm carrying some stress, right? So I pause to notice. I've already noticed my body's reaction, so what if I take time to notice my thoughts? I might see that I'm concerned about a deadline for an upcoming project. My anxious thoughts might be this: I'll never finish this in time. Why did I commit to this date? How will this get done? Now, once I've noticed these stressful thoughts, I can take a minute to discern. In this very simple example, I could simply move into some helpful self-talk. I'll often do this out loud because hearing my own voice actually helps me process things. So I might say something like this: I'm noticing that you're anxious and a bit stressed about your deadline. Why don't you pause and take a deep breath? Is anything actually going wrong right now? So as I take a moment to discern, I determine that nothing is really wrong. I'm simply adding a layer of anxiety to my situation out of habit. So now I might continue by moving to respond, again, out loud so I can hear myself. Now, this looks like your old habit of worrying about an upcoming event. I see your tendency and I can understand why this might be happening. For now, I'd like to choose a refreshed way. I'm going to try on a less stressful posture and choose to lighten up my thoughts just a bit, and I'm going to cast my cares on God who cares for me. So, with that much said out loud to myself, I could actually lower my shoulders, loosen my jaw, take a deep breath, relax my thoughts, and share my worries about my deadline with God. And then I could keep moving through the rest of the day. Now, I realize that might seem very quick and too good to be true. I get it. But I'm trying to show you a rather simple example of how it could work with some practice in a day-to-day way. It's a simple shift of perspective and thought. You move from notice to discern and respond, and you can make an inner shift. It's also good to remember that the discern portion can take much longer depending on the severity of what you discover when you notice. Now, if this is the case and you realize you need more time to discern what you notice when you paused, you might consider returning to the ideas I shared at the very beginning. You could journal. You could engage a spiritual practice. You could talk to a trusted friend, or you might even want a spiritual director, a coach, or a counselor. Again, there are various levels of what you might discover when you move into the discern portion. Today, I'm just sharing with you the simple version of this. Now, there's no rush here. Take as much time as you need as you discern your thoughts. Whatever you find, don't let fear stop you from seeking the healing that you need. You are more than worth the time and the effort. I hope you'll try on this very simple version of NDR and that you'll find yourself less stuck and more free. If you want to take a deeper dive into this process, I suggest you sign up for my Managing Inner Narratives online coaching group. I offer it twice a year, and NDR is central in this training. You can learn more about this on unhurriedliving.com/coaching. Now, here's your I can do that for this week. For now, let's just try on the first dynamic of noticing. Notice 2 or 3 unhelpful thoughts that float through your mind today. Write them in the Notes app on your phone or in your journal. Become a person who notices. Then, if you want to, later on, you can make some time, choose one of those thoughts, and work your way through discern and respond using the process I described earlier. And if you're feeling really brave, you can share your findings with a trusted, safe friend or family member. Greater depths of healing can occur when we share our lives in this way. Remember, you're making your way forward one small, simple, and gracious step at a time. If you love what you just heard, please follow, rate, and review this podcast. This helps more people find us, and I really appreciate your help. You can also text this episode to a friend so they can join you on this journey. Together, Let's move